Hello, YouTubers out there. This is Jerry Saravia The Movies. So, I just saw this episode on Twilight Zone The Movie on Cursed Films, which is a series that's available on Shutter.com. So it's 2 seasons worth. And they talk, of course, about the major tragedy that occurred on the set of Twilight Zone The Movie, specifically John Landis' segment, director John Landis, with the actor Vic Morrow and those two Vietnamese children. And as some of you know, what happened in this tragedy, or for those of you who don't know, they were running through the water and there were explosions in the background and a helicopter was lowered, and the explosion rocked the helicopter in such a way that it came crashing down right on them, and the blades struck them and decapitated them. And what made me think was, why? For example, I think Twilight Zone the movie is a pretty good movie. I like the film. The first segment with Vic Morrow is really not the best. It falls in line with what Twilight Zone the series was like. It's an original story, whereas the other ones are remakes from previous episodes. And so the idea of a racist entering these different periods in history, Nazism, Vietnam, etc., was a good idea. He just sort of, he leaves this bar restaurant, he's there with his buddies, and he's complaining about all the minorities taking jobs away from him and so on, that kind of thing. And so the episode, that started off well. But the problem, I think, with the film is that, or rather with this particular story, the weakest of these episodes from the movie, is that it ends on a very dark note that somehow made no sense with the character, because the initial idea was that he was going to be redeemed by these actions, and so by saving those children, he was going to be redeemed, and I suppose go right back to where he once was. Not that Twilight Zone the series didn't always have dark endings, but this one seemed like it was headed in a certain direction, and then of course he is led away in a train to Auschwitz. Is how I think how it ends, if I remember correctly. So it is the weakest of those episodes. But the issue I have is that, when I first saw the movie way back when, I wasn't really thinking of this unfortunate tragedy. I just looked at it as a movie. But as the years went on, and eventually Twilight Zone the movie became available on DVD, so I saw it again, and it was just one of those times when I saw the movie and I thought, it's still a good movie, but it's hard to shake the tragedy of what happened. Because once you know what happened, it's unmistakable. It was Vic Morrow's last film. There's really no other way to read it. And that was the most unfortunate aspect to the movie. It kind of ruins the film. It's really one of the few times I know of watching a film where it's ruined by a real-life tragedy. Because you can't really separate it from the movie. And I think that has made viewing the film difficult, because the other segments are pretty good. They were good. They were good ones. It's the Kick the Can, directed by Steven Spielberg. The one about the nightmare, I forget, 20,000 feet, whatever it was John Lithgow. And the really cartoonish, bizarre one, directed by Joe Dante, about the kid with these powers. Keeps his relatives and his parents terrified by this kid. He creates sort of a whole cartoonish world. It's a very twisted, macabre episode. So I can watch those individually, but the Vic Morrow one is difficult to watch, and it's just one of those cases where, you know, you just can't separate the tragedy. It's, you know, because that's how the film starts. It's with the Vic Morrow episode. I mean, even if it didn't, it wouldn't matter which order they would have shown these. But it has that bad reputation, this film, and you know, I mean, with good reason because of what happened. So, on one hand, it's like, sure, I wish I could add it to my DVD library or Blu-ray library or whatever, but on the other, it's like, you know, I just can't really do it. I think I came close once to buying it, and I said, you know, no, I can't do it. It's just one of those things. Vic Morrow was a tremendously good actor, and those kids, it's just, I don't even think the kids are present in the film in any frame at all, which makes sense. But Vic Morrow, really, you know, what they should have done was either not release the film, but of course, you know, money has to be made. It's Twilight Zone the movie, after all. Or take out that segment completely, which would have made sense. John Landis has not spoken about what has happened. He was not interviewed for that Cursed Films documentary short. And John Landis has not had the greatest reputation anyway as a director. But that in particular really sullied his career. Many careers apparently had ended because of that film and that tragedy. But not John Landis. I mean, he continued to work. So that's rather interesting. He was found not guilty. And, you know, there was a whole trial and everything else. And then, you know, he attended all three funerals for the kids and for Vic Morrow. I knew about the Vic Morrow, I didn't know about the other two. But he didn't handle it the best way, particularly his eulogy to Vic Morrow. And if you see the documentary subject on Cursed Films, you'll see why it makes no sense. I mean, he basically said Vic Morrow will be immortalized forever on celluloid. So even though he's gone, he's not really gone. Well, he probably shouldn't have, you know, you can be at the funeral, but it's in bad taste. It's even more than just bad taste. So, those are just my thoughts on it. I mean, I haven't really seen Twilight Zone the movie in a while. The last time I saw it, I wrote a review about it, and I just felt that the film was kind of ruined by Vic Morrow's tragedy. So it's a very good film, but the tragedy just is unshakable. So let me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. Are there any films that you know of outside of Twilight Zone the movie, or maybe Twilight Zone the movie itself, that affected the behind the scenes that affected the reputation of the film? This is one of those that I think, I'm sure there are other films. There are many films where accidents have occurred, certainly. But to sully the film, that's really the point. That you can't watch the film because of what occurred. And that it's inseparable in your mind. And what you think about Twilight Zone the movie. And John Landis. I mean, lend me your thoughts. So, that's all I got to say about that. And please subscribe to my channel. And this is Jerry Saravia the Movies, signing off.